What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for October 16th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy hump day to everyone out there. A little bit better yesterday. The whole Serenity Now thing got me through the day. Lots to get to about that in a moment. But first, some quick housekeeping notes. Follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, at PhillyJimbo. Follow the YouTube channel, subscribe, Jimbo_Mont. Spread the word. I've been saying it, but if you're enjoying this, obviously somebody else will too. So spread the word as we continue to grow this thing. If you need information on the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame, all of that information is in the description. Lots of good things happening there as we are about 3.5 weeks or so away from the induction ceremony. Huge class this year. Tickets are available. All the information on the inductees are there. We'll be recapping and looking forward to that come November. Let's start with the recap of yesterday's question of the day, which definitely rubbed some people the wrong way. And I will say I lost a few Twitter followers over this. And as somebody who's trying to grow this podcast, usually I'd be like, oh, no, I can't do that. But this is hilarious and really proves the point of the whole Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, Sirianni going out there and making a spectacle to take and shield our eyes, the whole old sleight of hand on Jalen Hurts' play. But I asked you, who's more responsible for the stagnation of the Eagles offense? Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts. 65% of you said Jalen Hurts. I had one follow in particular on Twitter said, my official vote is by Jim with the deuces. And honestly, that really proves my point that people are just blind to the fact that this is now a different offensive coordinator, or third if you count Nick Sirianni. They haven't been the same since Steichen, but you had Brian Johnson, you had Sirianni, and now Kellen Moore, and the offense still looks the same. I told you about the report that Howard Eskin had yesterday or the other day that Jalen's just not comfortable, and that's why the offense looks the way it is. But sure, let's blame the offensive coordinators. The one constant in this is Jalen Hurts. Middle of the field, where he's not using it. He's not under center. There's not as much motion and misdirection. And apparently it's because he's uncomfortable. But I wish you guys who left me, I bid you adieu. I wish you the best. However, 65% of you agreed with me that it is Jalen Hurts that is doing this. And yesterday, we'll get right into the Eagles news, I guess. Yesterday, the coordinator spoke, and Kellen Moore gave a ridiculous answer that I have no idea really what he said, but my takeaway was he was like game flow. He was trying to protect Jalen. My takeaway was the offense is the way it is because of Jalen. I don't know why it's so hard for people to see that. I don't know why people get so much caught up in their feelings. And truthfully, I'm just calling it like I see it. I mean, the one constant has been Jalen. And listen, I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm not saying he's terrible. I'm not saying we should start Kenny Pickett. I'm just saying there's a reason why the offense looks the way it does. And had it not been for the ability and athleticism of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith on Sunday, they would have lost that game. And sure, he didn't turn the ball over, but I don't know. I'm just saying all of this stuff is going on, and it's hiding the fact that we may have an issue with the quarterback. And I don't know why anybody, or some people, I shouldn't say anybody, I don't know why some people don't want to discuss this. And listen, I like Jalen. I'm not even out here bashing him because I don't like him. I just, my eyes tell me the story. And for people to get that, I mean, it is what it is. But I think it's hilarious. And I don't know. Tell me your thoughts. Back to the Future voice and text line is wide open, 267-495-8531. Let me know your thoughts on, is it me? Am I just jaded and picking on Jalen? But I don't know. But as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. There will be another one later in the show. And, I mean, other than that, Kellen Moore didn't really say much. Vic Fangio was questioned about Nick Sirianni saying that he has input on defense, and he said what he said was inconsequential, I think was his exact quote, and said it's no different than any other head coach he's ever had. And basically sometimes they say get aggressive, back off, this and that. But ultimately, Fangio made it say, like, hey, this is my decision. Of course he gives input. That's what head coaches do. So we'll see. Looking ahead to the Giants, I don't understand this line. It's only a 3-point line, and I really, like I said, I don't see it. I would not be the least bit surprised if the Giants catch us and we lose this game on Sunday. I know it's only Wednesday. I haven't had time to really dive into matchups and this and that, but Mailata is going to be out. Fred Johnson played well when he's filled in before, but say what you want about the Giants. The defense isn't too shabby up there, and they lead the league in sacks, and this could be a disaster in the making here. But we'll get more into that as the week goes on. But I don't. I mean, the Giants get 3 points for being at home. Does that mean the Eagles are sick? I don't see that. Maybe I'm just still bitter about Sunday's game. But the other big news was the Bengals game has been flexed to 1 o'clock. Here we go. I would not be surprised at the beginning of the season. Everybody's like, oh, we got all these primetime games. I would not be surprised if we see more of this as the season goes on. But we will have more on the Eagles-Giants as the week goes on. And it's really sad because to me, the Giants, as you know, are my biggest rival for the Eagles. And I'm just not feeling it yet. And it's only Wednesday, so there's still time, but I'm not feeling it right now. Maybe that'll change as the week goes on. All right, the big news, well, two big stories. We'll get to the second one, the better one, later, but Rob Dombrowski spoke yesterday, and he said a lot. I listened to the entire thing. I jotted down some notes and kind of went with what I feel he was trying to say. I guess the big announcement was Rob Thomson has been extended through 2026. The entire coaching staff will be back. And honestly, I like it. I mean, it is what it is, but the bottom line is the players weren't performing. The whole coaching staff is coming back, including Kevin Long. And the one thing that Thomson said that I think was very telling is that they go over the approaches to the plate every day. He reminds them to use all fields, shows them the analytics, tells them to be patient. They're just not doing it. You can make the argument that the players aren't listening to him, but these guys have been playing baseball their entire life. They know what to do. They're not doing it. They were doing it just fine before the All-Star break. It's just something in them kind of clicks. But I'm okay with Rob Thomson coming back. He said he doesn't want to go anywhere else. This is his final stop, blah, 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 blah. But I'm okay with that. I like him. I would like to see him be a little more aggressive, maybe. And who knows what goes on behind closed doors. But I don't need him to go full boa. But maybe get a little Charlie in you and yell at these guys a little bit and maybe bench them when they're not run out, whether it's Bryce or whoever. Bench them when they don't run out to first base. Send a message early in the season and let them know that this kind of stuff is not acceptable. I mean, he benched Bohm in the playoffs, so he has it in him, but I'd like to see more of that throughout the year. But that leads to today's question of the day. Should the Phillies have brought back or extended Rob Thomson, I should say, 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. I'm okay with it. I mean, give him a little bit of security, kind of reward him for, and he mentioned this, or one of them mentioned it, and it's the truth. It's not the results we wanted, but it is tough to make the playoffs 3 years in a row. I don't like that they've regressed 3 years in a row, but I mean, it is tough. They won the division, and he should be in contention next year. Which leads me to Dave Dombrowski. So kind of my takeaways, he talked very glowingly of Alec Boehm and Brandon Marsh. I think that was more increasing their trade value. I feel as though, yes, we like them. He talked very glowingly of Castellanos, who's going into the final year of his contract. And if we really look at this roster, those are really the only three guys that you have that have any sort of trade value. So maybe he was talking them up. Likely we see Castellanos back. He'll probably get an extension, I would think. But Bohm and Marsh, I mean, those are really your two expendable pieces right now. So it makes sense to me that he was going to talk them up. He talked about the fifth starter. Taijuan Walker is not guaranteed anything. He's going to get a shot to be the fifth starter. Andrew Painter certainly would be in the mix there, depending on how his arm goes through this fall league. But he didn't necessarily say he's not going to be on the team, but he made it clear that he's going to have to earn his spot. And I don't think that was any different than last year. So, again, he said a lot, but didn't really say much. There's a little testy exchange when it came to Trey Turner. He said Trey Turner will be our shortstop. I mean, what can you do about it? It is what it is. You're stuck with him. I wouldn't mind seeing a change with the batting order this year, and that's probably more on Thomson. Trey Turner has always been a leadoff hitter, so maybe move him up to the leadoff spot, move Schwarber down to maybe third or fifth, and see, maybe go Turner, Harper, Schwarber, and then if he's on the team, Bohm or some sort of variation of that. He talked about the plans for Johan Rojas. He's basically going to be living in Clearwater. They have a routine and a whole program for him, but he's not guaranteed a starting spot, which we'll see. I think, if anything, we're going to see a lot of changes in the outfield next year because that's really the weak spot. I would have loved to have seen more. He did say Austin Hayes is in the mix. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I saw something funny on Twitter where Weston Wilson made a comment. He's like, hey, I didn't do anything. All I did was hit 300. So I don't know if it was kind of tongue-in-cheek or Weston Wilson might be coming out with something to prove in spring training. But I think any kind of competition you have there is going to be good. Said it's not opposed to adding a star, but doesn't feel they need to add a superstar. And he said, we have more superstars than anybody in the league. I kind of cringed with that because you have Bryce Harper and then you have a lot of overpriced guys who, when they're good, they're good. I don't know if they're superstars per se, but okay. I agree. Maybe not a star. They need to add some role players because they need guys that are going to come in and be able to get base hits and not swing for the fences and not chase pitches. They need guys that will see pitches and work counts and things like that. And I know if you're listening, I apologize, but you know how my brother feels about Eric Bruntlund, but they need like an Eric Bruntlund type guy who's going to come in there, can play multiple positions, and really be a guy that is going to work some counts. Like he might not hit 350, but he's going to give you something off the bench. Maybe a little bit a step up from Eric Bruntlund, but he did say the hitting approach needs to change. Will it? I don't know. This is now 3 years in a row of the same thing happening. So we'll see. He talked about giving JT more rest, which I kind of read between the lines and which I didn't think he was going to be back anyway. But Garrett Stubbs likely won't be back, and it'll be Marchand. But Marchand needs to stay healthy. Maybe they go out and look for someone. I don't know. But it doesn't give you much in that press conference, which is fine because, I mean, you don't want to give away your offseason plan or strategy or anything like that. But I would not be the least bit surprised if they're going to run this back, and I could totally see that. He talked about the bullpen letting them down in the postseason, which, yeah, I mean, he's not lying, but didn't really put any of the blame on the offense, which was kind of disappointing, but we'll see how that goes because I as much as it sounded like they were going to run it back, I have a feeling the way he was talking up some of those guys, he's posturing to make some moves, and I don't think adding someone like Soto is going to necessarily all of a sudden make this team over the top World Series. But, I mean, they need guys that are going to just make contact and put the ball in play. So that's sort of where we are with that. And we'll see how it goes. I think, like I said, he didn't give you much. The big story was Rob Thomson. Do you agree with the decision to extend Rob Thomson? 267-495-8531. That'll get you in. And as far as the money, I think there is still sort of it comes down to whether or not John Middleton wants to spend the money, but they were willing to. They offered Yamamoto more money than what the Dodgers did. He just wanted to play on the West Coast and play with Ohtani. So we'll see how that sort of plays out with spending the money. And I would rather see them spend money on 4 or 5 solid pieces than 1 or 2 big pieces, because I do feel like there's a good core in place, and I agree with him when he said that. But that was the press conference in a nutshell. I didn't get, like, everybody's like, oh, they're going to run it back. They're going to run it back. And I really think the way he talked up Bohm and Marsh and even Castellanos, he's kind of setting them up to, like, hey, do you got anybody interested in these guys? Because Castellanos is on the last year of his contract. He's probably the most valuable trade piece that you have right now, too. So, again, we'll see how the offseason plays out, and we'll continue to cover it. Gold Glove finalists, Bryce Harper, Bryson Stott, Brandon Marsh, and Zach Wheeler were all finalists for their positions for the Gold Glove. Be sure to check out my boys over at the Clashing Conferences podcast, doing great things over there. A new football episode should drop tomorrow, baseball on Friday. And want to give a shout out to my cousin Greg, who's celebrating a birthday today. You can catch him on the football podcast, and that is available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. And then go over to Philly Goat to get some shopping done. It's never too early to start Christmas shopping. Get your Eagles, Sixers, Flyers. If you're feeling kind of nostalgic, get your Red October gear. I did see the T-Mac and Kruk 24 election shirt the other day at the Keswick Fall Fest. The guy didn't really want to have any parts of me when I said, hey, nice shirt, but he was waiting in line for a beer, so maybe that was why. But go to Philly Goat. Be sure to use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order. PhillyGoat.com, promo code Jim Montgomery. Sorry, I had a tickle in my throat. All right, so Sixers news. Maybe it doesn't look as bad for Paul George. It looks like he just suffered a bone bruise, likely out a week. He is in jeopardy to possibly miss the opening game on next Wednesday night. We'll see how that goes, and just not a good start, but it could have been worse, I guess. The fact that it was just a bone bruise, more so than any structural damage, is a good thing. We will begin our Sixers preview tomorrow. Kind of took the luster off of it because of the way they're going into it, but I'm still pretty high on the Sixers for this year. Flyers suffered a 4-3 overtime loss yesterday, but the big story, Michkov mania has arrived. 2 power play goals. 2. The weakness of the team last year, and Michkov already scored 2 power play goals in the first period. They could not hold on to the lead. And look, Edmonton's a good team. They're off to a little bit of a slow start, but Connor McDavid is good. But it was good to see Michkov come out, have 2 power play goals. Like I said, the future is bright for the Flyers. They're in Seattle tomorrow night before they come home on Saturday to finally play their first home game, in which many of us will be able to watch Michkov for the first time on Saturday. Looking forward to that. All right, today we're going to do a little bit of a double header for a Wednesday. And first, these are both quick hitters. That's why I'm doing 2. But first, we're going to go back to 1963. And on this day in 1963, the Sixers beat the Pistons 117-115 in their first ever game as the 76ers. They had moved from Syracuse that summer. They opened up on the road. When they were in Syracuse, they won the championship in 1955. But Hal Greer led all scorers with 26 points and added 10 rebounds. Sixers would play their first home game a few nights later, again against the Pistons. They lost. They went 34-26 that year. 34-46 that year. Lost to the Cincinnati Royals in the playoffs. But the next year they got wilt, and within a couple years after that, won a championship. But on this day in 1963, the Sixers beat the Pistons 117-115 in their first ever game as the Philadelphia 76ers. And then this one is more of just an interesting tidbit. On this day in 1983, the Eagles were supposed to play the Cowboys at Veterans Stadium. However, the Phillies were also scheduled to play that day, Game 5 of the World Series against the Baltimore Orioles. So in an unprecedented move, which I don't think would ever happen today, the NFL swapped home games between the Eagles and Cowboys. So they just said, okay, we'll play the first game in Dallas, second game in Philadelphia. I think we might be seeing the NFL saying, no, you move the World Series game because we've already had this scheduled. But it was a different time back then where Major League Baseball was king. However, it was not a good day for the Philadelphia teams. The Eagles lost 37-7 to the Cowboys, and then the Phillies lost 5-0 to the Orioles, losing the game and the World Series. And that all happened on this day in 1983. Finally today, our final Red October great game in Phillies postseason history. This certainly did not play out the way I thought it was going to. Thanks a lot, Phillies, for cooperating with me. But this is Game 5 of the 2008 World Series. It was the greatest 3 days of my Phillies fandom. Started out on October 22nd. John Oates sang the national anthem. Shane Victorino got us started early in the first inning with a 2-run single, and everybody was feeling great. The crowd was loud. This was finally going to break the curse of Billy Penn, and we were going to win a championship. Rays got one back in the fourth. Rain was falling. It started falling much, much harder and allowed the Rays to tie it in the top of the sixth. Then the umpires postponed it. Lots of things came into question, but it was discussed beforehand that because of the weather report, if the game got stopped, it would have to go the full 9 innings, because in Major League Baseball, technically, after 5.5 innings, the game is considered official. But in the postseason and the World Series, they were like, no, you got to play the full game. Probably should have been stopped a little bit earlier, and I think that's where things got a little bit dicey, because that game should not have been tied just because of the way the infield, it was like just a one big puddle. But this is Philadelphia. We were breaking the curse, so why not? So they called the game for the day. It rained all day the 28th, and then it picked back up on October 29th. In the bottom of the sixth, Jeff Jenkins pinch hit for Cole Hamels. Got on, hit a double, got bunted to third by Jay Roll. And then Jason Worth singled him in, putting Cole Hamels in line for the victory, which would have been his 5th postseason victory, which would have tied a Major League Baseball record. Unfortunately, the Rays came back and tied it again in the 7th, and they had a rally going. And one of the greatest plays you'll ever see in World Series history, but even possibly Major League Baseball history, Chase Utley saved the go-ahead run with a nice caught the ball up the middle, faked the throw to first to get the runner to break home, threw it on a dart to Chooch, who did tag out the runner. And then top of the 8th, Pat Burrell doubled, or bottom of the 8th, Pat Burrell, or bottom of the 7th. That's right. It was such a short span. Bottom of the 7th, Pat Burrell doubled. It was his only hit of the World Series, and he almost hit it out. I think if it was a July or an August game, it would have been a home run. He got pinch run for by the aforementioned Eric Bruntlett. Pedro Feliz knocked in Bruntlett, and then Romero and Lidge locked it down. The iconic moment was Brad Lidge falling to his knees, putting his arm in the air, Chooch coming up, give him the hug, and then my all-time favorite moment from that celebration was Shane Victorino coming in and doing the Jimmy Superfly Snuka on top of the pile. But we finally won. I remember, ironically enough, I was at my one buddy's house. He ran out of beer just as the top of the ninth was happening. So ran out, got a ride down to Main Street in Manayunk, partied it up all night on Main Street, went into work late. Obviously, I went into work late. Told my boss, I'm not coming in tomorrow. I am going to the parade. And he was just like, okay. It was the only time I ever had the balls to be that forthright. Probably because I was still drunk from drinking champagne the night before. But Game 5 of the 2008 World Series today, and our final great game in Phillies postseason history. The greatest 3 days of my Phillies fandom. Have never been close to feeling that good about the Phillies since then. Hopefully, at some point before I die, I will get to feel that feeling again. Maybe just over one day, though, instead of 3. But Game 5 of the 2008 World Series, the pinnacle of my Phillies fandom. On this day in 1983, Eagles and Cowboys swapped home games so the Phillies could play Game 5 of the World Series. Eagles lost 37-7. Phillies lost 5-0, end the series. But also on this day in 1963, the 76ers played their first game ever as the Philadelphia 76ers, beating the Pistons 117-115 out in Detroit. And the rest, as they say, is history. Let me know your thoughts on Rob Thomson. Anything else anything else Dombrowski had to say. 267-495-8531. I'm fine with them extending Thompson, though. It's okay. I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, I would like to see him get a little bit more Charlie Manuel in him and be more stern with the guys. But listen, it is what it is. I think there's a lot wrong with this team, and you put the blame on a lot of things. I don't think the manager is one of them. But let me know your thoughts. Maybe it is Rob Thomson. Maybe if you do get a fiery guy in there, it'll make a difference. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Let me know your thoughts on the Hurts-Kellen Moore thing. Because like I said, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And I don't see it. I mean, I think it's glaring at this point what the issue is with the offense. But everybody is all in their feelings about Jalen. But I think it's time, and I've been saying it for a couple weeks now, I think it's time that we have a very serious and legitimate conversation about the quarterback, and is this guy the answer moving forward? I mean, the proof is in the record. I mean, look at the past year and a half, and I think that's all you need to see. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for October 16th, 2024. My name is Jim Montgomery. Go have yourselves a Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.